Moms and dads, we're going to be talking not about how to magic wand it. We're going to talk about what I talk about all the time, those micro steps that lead to huge changes. And we're talking with Dr. Katherine Clinton. She is the author of Optimize. It's a book we're going to get into. And I'm just so excited because she's just one of the coolest moms I know. And she's, a naturopath. She's been a homeschooler, and she's just like one of us. Our kids are all a little on the unique side. And we're going to be diving into what are those little things that every single parent across the globe, because people listen to me from all over the world, what can you do today? And so welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to dive into these small steps we can take that have a big impact on our children's health.
They really can. And we always have a good time. So it's always a pleasure to always talk to you. And again, we're both moms trying to change the world, and our parents are going to really get the benefit of that today. Kids are struggling more than ever. And there's anxiety. There's a lot of dysregulation. The word dysregulation has become a hot word because kids are struggling with emotional regulation. And things feel like they're fundamentally different today. Our parents are much more anxious. But when we talk about being burnt out, and you talk about such interesting things, and we're going to talk a little bit about quantum biology, but why do you feel like today, we both have been parents for at least 20 years. Why do you feel that kids today are so burnt out and overloaded?
That's a great question. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. It is fundamentally different to be living right now in today's world. We are inundated with information, with expectations. When you and I were kids, it was like, go outside, be home when the street lights come on, come home for dinner. There were periods of silence. There were periods of stillness. There was boredom. There was connection. And we've traded all those things for this hyper-driven, screen-dominant culture that has our children with, 30 different tabs open in their heads at all time, multiple different expectations for every given moment. That doesn't breed that regulated child, that calm child, that happy, content child.
So true. We can't go backwards, but man, we were riding our bikes until hear Philomena call us out the back door. And then we knew we had to hustle. If Philomena called us, we were in trouble. That's my mom. She's a big part of my book too. We had boredom. I mean, I just remember playing with my dolls for like hours. And I also was a child who was experimenting with cooking like from at a very young age. We were doing things instead of this all the time and just needing that stimulation. So you really have brought quantum biology into the consciousness of the world. And I know that was a big researcher, and you're a big believer in his work. Talk to us in really simple terms, because I think that's what you've gotten such a huge following. If you're not following Dr. Katherine Clinton on Instagram and Facebook, please do, because she puts out really cool posts that they're just awesome, and they're so visually cool too. What is quantum biology, and in layman's terms, to help people understand it?
Great question. Perfect place to start. Quantum biology is a expanded understanding of the body. When we're talking about how to approach health and healing, we usually stay in the confines of a chemical, mechanical approach. We're talking about nutrition, we're talking about mechanics of the body, posture, surgery might be needed, all these different interventions that we use in conventional medicine, and that's great. Those things are valuable, and we know how valuable they are, but there's another piece at play when it comes to health, and that's quantum biology. It's looking at the flow of energy in the body. And really a way to look at it in a simple term is that there are all these waves of information around us. We're talking about light, we're talking about electrical fields, magnetic fields, sound, EMFs. All of these things impact our body. They have measurable biological action in the body. And so quantum biology is really the idea of how we can harness these different inputs or how we can avoid some of those inputs for better health for our children.
Yeah. And if we think about quantum biology and these different inputs, right, some of which we talked a little bit about, how does that help us to understand some of the struggles, some of the dysregulation maybe that we're seeing in our kids? Because they are, as you really said, just so much input is coming in. Like, what's that connection? Because we're going to actually talk about solutions and ways to improve the inputs and really try to really improve regulation through those micro actions. And we'll dive into that. But how does that help us understand some of this dysregulation that we're seeing?
Well, I think that we have to understand that this expansion that a quantum biology approach to health gives us is more tools. We have a deeper understanding of what happens. So when someone comes to us, when a parent comes to us and they say, okay, I've tried the diet, I've tried this and that, nothing's working. Well, let's try to look at the body from a different perspective, from an expanded perspective. And this is what I love about the work that you do. You really talk and put a vital importance on that coherence between a parent and their child, that relationship of co-regulation, that entrainment that happens between a parent and their family. And it's so important how we understand that there's so many different tools in our toolkit, and we should know about all of them. If we're
Yeah.
just doing nutrition, then we don't understand about the co-regulation piece. We don't understand about the nervous system that is hyper firing at all times. We don't understand the impact of light on our children, the effect of natural light or the effect of artificial light. I mean, there's so many different things that impact how our bodies work, how our children's bodies work. And it's really knowledge is power so that we
Yeah.
have more tools in the toolkit.
I think that's why, I mean, truly your posts are so popular and you write these like mini little dissertations in your posts and always cite research, which, I'm such a research nerd. So I love all that. But it's really getting people to go, huh, I didn't think about it like that because my work is nervous system regulation. And as you said, the coherence, right, which is co regulation. And you often really talk about what's changing neurobiology, the fascia, the different components of our bodily systems. I always talk about instead of being overwhelmed by all the options, get excited
Yeah.
that there are micro steps, right? That
Yeah.
we can do. Dr. Katherine Clinton is a trained naturopath. So for her to say nutrition is not everything, and it is important, but that's a big statement because you broke away to say, wait, not everybody, there are many ways we can heal and regulate and optimize, which is
Mhm.
such a great title for your book. Talk about why you chose this title because it really is a beautiful way to say we all can be a little better.
Yeah. Yeah, and you make a great point. I'm a naturopathic physician. That's what we're trained in. We're trained in nutrition and herbal interventions and lifestyle interventions, and I got really sick in naturopathic medical school. I was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune conditions and Lyme disease, and that's when I found this expanded approach to healing, that there's more than nutrition and supplements, which I don't discount. Those things are really important. But like I said, it's important that we know all of our tools, that we understand all of that. All the pieces of the puzzle are important. And so that's where this book came from. That's where this idea of optimization, because when I got sick, I was in the perfect place for healing. I was in a naturopathic medical school. They did a dual degree with Chinese medicine. I was right down the hill from an allopathic medical, conventional medicine teaching college as well. So I had all the things at my fingertips. And I was able to get back from that debilitated state to a productive member again. I could go to classes, I could do my clinical shifts, but I wasn't healthy. I wasn't vital. I was still sick. And that's where these tools came in. And they're free, they're
Yeah.
accessible. And I'm so excited about getting this information out to the people that need it.
Yeah. And again, it's such a mindset shift, especially as people are expanding ideas about what health are. And so in Optimize, you talk about some of these amazing tools. Right? And some of the tools you're talking about, and I know because I'm a big follower and I literally read every post, is talking about sleep and rhythm and changing the rhythm of the body. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we are living in a sleep deprived world. I mean, considering I'm a woman in perimenopause and I'm always working on it, and I definitely have gotten better, but I know what affects me. And kids don't always have those words. Teenagers, they're used to shortchanging it. Talk a little bit about some of this, the sleep and the rhythm, what happens at a biological level.
Yeah, because it's so foundational. It's
So
really,
foundational.
yeah, it's so important. And I think a lot of people, this is really new research. I mean, it was 2017, three researchers were awarded the Nobel Prize for their work on chronobiology. And that's just a big word for how light affects our biology. And what they found is almost every single cell in our body has a circadian clock, a circadian gene in it. That means that the light in our environment stimulates what our body does. It drives all of those things. So if we are getting out, if our children are getting out in the morning, upon waking, within the first half an hour of waking, maybe they have a chore of walking a dog, or maybe they have a routine that they do and go outside for a walk or whatever it might be to get them outside. That light that comes in through the eyes, it is cueing their hormones, it's cueing their inflammatory state, it's cueing their neurotransmitters. So their dopamine that allows them to be focused and motivated, that's transformed by the natural light that we see in the morning. Serotonin that allows us to feel calm, allows us to buffer against the anxieties of modern life. That again is transformed and secreted during that rising of the sun in the morning. That time is so crucial for regulating our immune system, our neurological system, our neurotransmitters, our hormones, our metabolism. It cues our fat burning components, our lipotropins, all these different things just by going outside for 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, how incredible is that? And then the flip side of that
That's
is,
right. I was like, let's dive into that one, Dr. Katie,
yeah,
because the
totally.
flip side is, I mean, I'm here filming today. You heard me say this. I have filmed 40 videos this last week and a half. I'm a cuckoo girl. But these lights will disrupt me for 48 hours. So I have a
Yeah.
whole system of countering that. Now, this is unusual, but the computer is not. And I know that's what you're going to dive into. How do we counter all this blue light we're getting?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that blue light, what we have been living with, that dominant light signal has been the rising and setting of the sun. And that blue light, the thing that triggers all those things I just mentioned in the morning, as the sun rises, it gains more and more blue light. We get exposed to more and more blue light. And that says, okay, let's go. Let's secrete cortisol. Let's secrete serotonin and dopamine and get going. And then as it starts to set, that arc of the sun, it starts to down regulate all those processes. And then as it sets, it tells our body, okay, it's time to stop secreting cortisol. It's time to secrete melatonin that acts not only for a deep restorative sleep that we need for repair, that we need for healthy brain function, for mood, for immune system. It's also a master antioxidant. So many of us and our children are inflamed, and just getting that circadian rhythm can be a powerful player in how to regulate inflammation as well as sleep, of course. So here in the Pacific Northwest where I am, it gets dark at 4:30, and we're just not bumping into each other in the dark here. We still live and stay up till a regular bedtime. But what we do is we transition our lighting. So we have some incandescent bulbs, we have some salt lamps that we turn on. We turn off those overhead lights. We move to light that's more rich in red, infrared, yellow tones, like you would see with the setting of the sun, like you would see in a fire. And what that does is several different things. We talked about melatonin and how important that is for sleep and inflammation. That red and infrared light is also so vital for our mitochondria. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. Whatever tissue, whatever organ we're talking about, whether we're talking about the brain, whether we're talking about the heart, whether we're talking about the immune system, all these things have a relationship with the mitochondria that are in those cells in that tissue. Those mitochondria are those little organelles inside the cell of whatever tissue we're talking about.
And it
And
powers everything. It's the
it powers
power of our
everything.
body.
Yep.
And many of the kids, because I talk about this, many of the kids that I work with do have known mitochondrial issues. So I'm so grateful that you're bringing this up, but please continue.
Yeah. Well, a simple way for us to think about this is blue light puts the brakes on our mitochondrial function, and red light feeds and supports our mitochondrial function. And we've gone from this natural rhythm of, okay, blue light, let's go, let's do all this action, and then red and infrared light through the evening hours supporting our mitochondrial function, to blue light all the time. If I pulled out a spectrometer right now and I'm like you, I've got all these lights on so that we can see each other. They are LED. They are dominant in one spectrum of blue light. If I were to take that spectrometer outside, you would see the full spectrum of blue, but you'd see the whole visible spectrum, right? Red, yellow, orange, red. You would see a ton of infrared energy, which is so supportive of our mitochondria. You would see some ultraviolet light, depending on what kind of season you're in, but some at least. And that, if we think about light as a nutrient, our children are starving for different light spectrums that aren't present in our modern day lighting anymore. And so not only do you have the sleep, not only do you have the inflammatory piece of blue light at night, but you also have this effect, powerful effect on the mitochondria. And I mean, we could just talk about the research for a long time. There's so much research coming out where red light is being used to overcome children with mitochondrial disorders. I mean, it's really, really powerful. They're doing just a few minutes of red light exposure in the morning. But basically, if we just understand that that modern LED light puts the brakes on our mitochondria and red light supports it. So what do we do as parents? Do I have everyone shuffling around? No, I mentioned some lighting that we can do. We can shift to lighting that has infrared and red tones to it. We lower the intensity of light. We can even lower the level of light. So our overhead lights are on during the day, and then I switch to actual lighting that's lower, like salt lamps, like sconces on the
I
wall.
do the same.
Yeah.
I feel that it's so dramatic in how
Yeah.
it really helps. These are really things that are very actionable for people that I just don't think people are thinking about What are your thoughts about the blue blockers? I got my
Mhm.
blue blockers over here. Do you think they should have the red over them? Like, what are your thoughts about how these are? Mine obviously don't. They're my cheap Amazon glasses, but and I generally find that if you ask your kids to wear them, they generally will. And there's also the nighttime vision that goes on your PC, your phone. I think that those are all helpful tools. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's happening there is you're blocking those spectrums of blue light that tell your body, okay, it's noon, not nighttime. And something we can wrap our head around is some research that was done a couple years ago that showed that just a brief period of time, like 10 minutes of exposing children to that artificial LED blue light decreased melatonin. This is nighttime exposure, decreased melatonin by 90%.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we look at the research, our children, and as we go into perimenopause and menopause, we become more circadian sensitive as well. Those ends of the spectrums are extremely sensitive to different light environments. So I'm hoping that that serves as some encouragement to try out blue light blocking glasses, to maybe change some of the bulbs in the house, maybe use some of these apps where the screen color becomes a little bit changed. And it's dramatic for the child's ability to sleep. It's interesting because when I was first doing this with my children, they sleep. They didn't have sleep problems. They would go to sleep. It was easy to fall asleep, but the kind of sleep, the quality of sleep they were getting did not allow for the regulation, did not allow for the brain function and the mood that was optimal. And that's where the blue light blocking and all these different things we're talking about right now was so powerful. And I think a lot of parents do say, well, you know, my child does sleep. They fall asleep easily and they sleep through the night. Do they wake up tired? Do they wake up groggy? Do they wake up excited? Do they jump out of bed like a child should? Are they excited for life? Are they able to focus on what they want to do for the day? If not, sleep might be an issue, right?
Yeah.
And there's simple steps we can do to really support our children in their health.
And it's a matter of making a routine out of it. I want to unpack something you said because we always think of inflammation. We think of people that have conditions like PANS, PANDAS, or autoimmune diseases, things like diabetes and whatnot. And yes, they have a lot of inflammation. But if your child has a clinical condition like ADHD or anxiety or autism, so does yours.
Yep.
And so we have to think about lowering our inflammation load. And let me tell you, pharma is aware of this because they're creating anti-inflammatory psychiatric medications, and we're often so quick to jump to medications because your kid may be really difficult and cranky. And this is about expanding your idea of what could be contributing to that. And even if they have a clinical diagnosis, it doesn't mean they lose their diagnosis, but don't we want to optimize their brain and body so that their symptoms are less, which is why we're having this conversation. And I think it doesn't have to be the magic wand. It could be this one small thing of, okay, I'm going to have no overhead lights. This is my life. No overhead lights at night. I minimize my lights. I'm careful. I do put my Zoomy glasses on, my
Mhm.
UV glasses on at night. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
Makes a
Yeah.
huge difference in quality of sleep, for
Yeah.
sure. You also
Absolutely.
talk a lot about kids really grounding in nature and the
Mhm.
impact of that. And we often think of just young kids grounding.
Mhm.
And I want to say that just shouldn't be the only people grounding. It has to be us, it has to be older kids. Talk a little bit about what grounding does to the body and getting outside in nature.
We are electrical beings. And I know that sounds like, oh, where's she going now with this? It's a little out there. But really, our cells run on electrical voltage. And we see from the research, when that voltage decreases, we start to have immune issues. We start to have inflammatory issues. There's a way to look at the body where pain, inflammation, symptoms are associated with a decrease in that electrical charge. And mitochondria are foundational in supporting that electrical charge, but our cells have that electrical charge in their membrane. It's really foundational for how our body works. And the surface of the earth is lined with this sea of electrons, these free negatively charged particles. And we're used to thinking of electricity, electrons, like we plug our appliance into the socket and electrons flow like water through a hose into the appliance to charge that appliance. But that's really a misnomer. That's not exactly how it works. That's why we're able to place our phones on a charging pad. They don't have to be plugged in, or our toothbrushes or Wi-Fi. These fields, there's energy in the field, and there's energy in the field that lines the surface of the earth. And when we go out and make contact with that, gardening, bare feet, climbing a tree, sitting on a blanket and having a picnic, we are coming in contact with this infinite sea of electrical charge that helps balance our body's electrical charge. We can see when we start to increase our positive electrical charge, it's associated with some of this inflammation. And when we come in contact with the earth, it decreases that electrical charge. Not to mention that it puts us in exposure to the sounds of nature, which are deeply regulating for the nervous system. Bird song, breeze through the leaves of a tree or through the grass. We're exposed to negative ions in the air that we're breathing. We're exposed to the natural microbiome, which is present in the air that we're breathing. I think a lot of people think of food when we're talking about the microbiome and the gut microbiome, but air actually has, the air that we breathe has more impact on our gut microbiome than the food we eat. It's really incredible.
That's probably mind-blowing for people. Like, they probably have never heard that before. Yeah. And, kids aren't just outside in the same way. And adults, we're not as outside as we used to. I live in a northern state and it's really, really cold and I hate it. And I will vacate after my son graduates high school. But I am not a cold weather, but there's a lot to say, just getting outside in the sun, in the cold, in the air. And people say, like, I feel different when I'm outside breathing air. And that's a part of it. The microbiome building through the air is something everybody can do.
It's something everyone can do. And it's something we can start teaching our children about. So with my kids, they live in the world. They like their screens, they like their games, but they also have been trained by this parent they have to understand the difference. So my 16-year-old will say, I've been gaming too long. I got to go outside. Sometimes he'll ask, like, can we go for a hike? We live in a place where you can walk outside and there's a lot of nature right here, but he'll even ask to, like, go somewhere else and go on a hike because he knows how regulating, how calming that is. And I think all of us as adults, as parents, recognize that feeling when we've been just scrolling and scrolling for that dopamine hit and we're just tapped out.
Done.
We're not going to get it,
yeah.
right?
Like, yeah. Oh yeah. You can feel it in your body. And then you and I have talked about this before, when you have kids where you're educating, not lecturing, and you're also role modeling, and you're really teaching them about, oh, doesn't that feel weird? It becomes something they want for themselves. It's not perfect. but they recognize they need balance in the same way that we recognize it. You can't force these things on your kids, but you can set the tone and
Yeah.
you can support them in doing these things without having conflict, because the nervous system needs to know regulation, and there's multiple ways to get there. And the microbiome and connecting with nature, you are so right that the nature has a hum that brings about a difference, even just from a mindfulness perspective of slowing down and just being more connected to nature creates a coherence, right? Lowers your heart rate, makes everything work in a different way, brings you to a much closer to a parasympathetic state than sitting there, like you said, and dopamine hitting from the scroll.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, even just the sights that you're seeing the blue sky, seeing green, looking out over a vast area, over the horizon. That has dramatic neurological effects that we don't get when we have a screen right next to us and we're scrolling or we're gaming, and it's felt. I mean, I think all of our senses really get impacted when we go outside. And like you said, it's not lecturing. I don't lecture my kids about it. I say like, "Oh, this feels so good." I tell them what I notice about myself. They start to notice that. Sometimes when they're really dysregulated, I might say like, "Seems like you've been on the screens for a while." I just gently
Yeah.
plant seeds so that they're able to name that feeling. So they're able to understand and put it in a bigger context that they want to feel that regulation and they know how to do that. And that's a huge life skill that I mean, I wish I had gotten when I was growing up, right? Like, how do you regulate? Oh,
Yeah.
that feeling, that's dysregulation. So how am I gonna
That's
regulate,
right.
right?
And screens aren't going away,
No.
and there's more of a demand in schools now,
Yep.
like, they don't really have textbooks anymore. Your jobs are very dependent on screens in every kind of job, pretty much, and
Mhm.
so teaching them to take a break
Yeah.
and reset is a very powerful thing. And in this book, in Optimize, right, we're not going into every single detail. You can get it by going to drkatherinclinton.com/optimize. You also can just look up the book Optimize in Barnes and Noble, your local bookstore, and of course Amazon. But there are a lot of places to get books, and it will be out by the time this episode comes out. You really go into other things we're not going to go into, also including water and hydration. And hydration definitely is something I feel that we don't talk enough about. It is a powers the cells. What can you tell parents about hydration and helping kids, just how important hydration is from a quantum biology perspective, a different perspective? Because I think they understand that kids need to drink more, but I don't think they really understand from the mitochondrial, from the cellular perspective, just how important it is for their mental and physical health.
Yeah, that's the first. It's optimized 7 groundbreaking steps to better health and longevity through quantum biology, and that's the first step is water and hydration because that's the backdrop for all of these things. That's what captures the light to help the mitochondria work more efficiently. So if we're dehydrated, that's really the antenna. We can't pull that information in for that measurable biological effect, for that change in the body. I think that a lot of our kids are inflamed, dealing with histamine issues, dealing with mold issues, and just being dehydrated is going to activate those mast cells and the release of histamine. I mean, we could spend so long talking about all the things with hydration
And
because
and
it's
mast
so
cell
foundational.
is something, so not just my pandas families are realizing, but people are talking about it. It's happening in the world.
Mhm.
And when you have health issues that aren't getting better, it's a diagnosis du jour at this point. I'm not saying it's not real. It's just that people are coming to realize that. And they don't understand, like, how do I hydrate? I'm drinking water. It was so funny. I had a psychic reading recently, and she was like, "You're really dehydrated. And I was like, don't I know it? And I'm always taking my electrolytes. I'm always working to hydrate myself. And I was just really busy that week and I could feel it. Like I feel when I'm dehydrated. Like I just, as soon as you said hydration, I was like, oh boy, I didn't take my electrolytes today.
Yeah. No, and I
But
think that there's so many things to that, like you're saying, drinking electrolytes, but also being busy. That being busy that you were experiencing,
yes,
being in front of those lights, Wi-Fi, all these things are dehydrating. Stress is dehydrating, and we don't realize it. There's so many things that impact hydration besides water, and hydration is just foundational. If we don't have hydration shells around our proteins, they can't fold and our cells can't function. It's just that simple. And
yeah.
so it's so foundational.
And it's so important for kids to just have water, water,
Mhm,
water, water, not
mhm.
soda, not juice, water. But I do really recommend electrolytes, good quality electrolytes for everybody. I think it's a missing ingredient for people. And I'm glad to hear it is your foundational piece. I didn't realize that because I don't have the book's not out yet. Final words. Of course, everybody's going to get optimized. If there is one thing that parents can do today that is a tiny micro habit to bring in to their daily world, what do you say to parents?
I think that this idea of co-regulation, I think this idea of tending to our health and our children's health at the same time. So going outside together, eating together, taking a deep breath. When I take a deep breath with my kids around, they take a deep breath right after me, right? It's this ripple effect. And so many of us as parents put our children first and are scrambling and doing so many different things. We have so many different tabs open, so to speak, in our life. But one of those can be, how do we tend to each other at the same time and making these routines? Talk about in the book, I talk about light, I talk about our electrical capacity, our relationship with nature. I talk about coherence and this co-regulation that we have. I talk about the microbiome. I talk about all these things, but it's not a checklist. It's not a chore list. It's an invitation to explore these things with your children so that you are also being tended to, because our nervous system is really that flagship that points our
Absolutely.
children in the right direction. So I would invite parents to just explore these things with their children and not see it as a chore, see it as a invitation to return to some of that vitality that might be missing.
I love that framing and invitation because in a place where 50% of parents feel overwhelmed, a little step might feel too big, but these are micro steps. Co-regulation is one of the greatest powers parents don't know they have. And I didn't
Mhm.
know that was going to be your number one tip, but I'm so happy that it is. And so, for anybody that wants to connect with Dr. Katherine Clinton, first of all, buy her book, Optimize. But you can find her on Facebook, you can find her on Instagram. And like I said, she has incredible posts. But for the deeper dive and for the ways to really understand what are those micro steps to help your quantum biology, the change in all these different elements that affect our energy fields and affect us on a deeply cellular level,
Mhm.
please start thinking differently because we are becoming sicker. We're not becoming healthier. And these are little things we all can do. So thank you for all of your work. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of you that you wrote this book. And I really look forward to reading it. And I know all of my tribe of regulators are going to wind up loving your book too. And thank you again.
Want more insights and solutions? Well, subscribe to our Dysregulation Insider and it will show up in your inbox every week.